are we, and how did we get here? That is the question. Hi, Dr. John back with another edition of A Better You in a minute or two. I was just rereading chapter 1 of my book, The Synthesis Effect, where I talk about how modern Western culture and society has become so chronically stressed and anxious. And you may remember at the end of our last edition where we talked about the folly of multitasking. Oh, and by the way, thanks for all the emails from those of you who decided to take my advice and start doing one thing at a time, using your brain the way it's supposed to be used, and you feel so much more productive and so much more efficient and so much more relaxed. Way to go. I hope more of you try it. But anyway, you may remember at the end of that episode, I mentioned the fact that 85 to maybe even 95% of the people I see in the clinic, and these are people from age 7, my youngest clients, all the way up to people in their 70s and 80s, they come in with chronic stress and anxiety. We are, as a society, as a culture, chronically stressed and anxious. And of course, the main reason, as I explained in much more detail in the synthesis effect, is that we spend so much of our time focusing on the negative side of the contrast coin. Remember, every issue, every situation has two sides. If you're focusing on the gloom and the doom and the despair and the insufficiency and the fear, well, it doesn't feel very good. But what is this thing called stress that we're all feeling too much of? Well, in reality, it is Mother Nature's protective system. It is a system designed to help us cope with threats. If we go back in time to our ancestors, those people that were out there hunting and gathering, and the nasty creature they're trying to bring home from lunch turns the table on them, well, something happened. They went into stress mode. The endocrine system kicks in. It squirts adrenaline and cortisol and other very powerful chemicals into their system. They become super strong, super alert, and for a short period of time, almost like supermen, which hopefully got them out of a life and death situation. That's what it's meant to do. Get you out of a life and death situation. But let's think about it. How many of us in modern Western culture are facing saber-toothed tigers that want to eat us? Not very many. And we are in this mode, this fight or flight situation, and we just keep adding more and more. So here you are, you add a little more stress, 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 a little more stress. What's going to happen? If you don't do something, I'll show you what's going to happen. I don't want to break that rubber band. This one, boom, you fall apart. And that's what happens to so many people. So there's a hint in that. Since most of us, most of the time, are not facing life and death situations, then it's not necessary to be in the fight or flight or stress survival mode. And you don't have to take my word for this. One of the best books I ever read, this literally helped me change my life years ago, is a little book called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And the subtitle is, And It's All Small Stuff. It was written by a really, really smart psychologist, Dr. Richard Carlson. I love this little book. I read it at least once a year because in its very short, very easily readable chapters, you will see yourself over and over and over again. And Dr. Carlson gives fabulous insights and perspectives on how to not sweat the small stuff, because most of it is. So there's the number one stress-busting technique I can share with you. Don't stress over something that's not worth it. And here's a little technique that I've developed for myself that works really, really well in that regard. If I start finding myself wigging out about something, because we all do, I mean, it is in our genes almost because of our culture, I stop and I say, now wait a second. In the big scheme of things, is this issue, this situation that you're about to get all wigged out about worth it? Are you going to be worried about this a year from now? 6 months from now? A month from now? 2 weeks from now? Most of the time, 99% of the time, the answer is no. Well, then it's not worth your energy. And what happens is, if you keep doing this, you'll see that most of the stuff that's wigging you out really isn't worth your energy. And you get all that energy back. It's a really great technique. Now, next time we're going to talk about some other very powerful physical and behavioral changes and techniques that you can use to get rid of stress that you don't want. But the easiest way is not to stress over things that aren't worth your time. Until then, remember this: it's always about a better you. So long.